Have you ever heard that writing is 2% inspiration and 98% perspiration? What if I told you that writing could be 98% inspiration? Welcome to Intuitive Writer. I'm your host, Camille Chan. I'm here to show you how you can tap into inspiration and make it a part of your everyday writing practice. Say goodbye to those days of perspiring over the keyboard and hello to inspiration. Hello everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of Intuitive Writer. I'm your host, Camille Chan. Thank you so much for being here today. Now, I had a whole plan for today's episode. I was going to talk to you about writing guides, and I'm still going to do that, but I had a really amazing experience with my writing last week, and I got the nudge from the universe to share it with all of you. So that's what I'm going to do today. Many of you know that I have been writing for a very long time. Over 30 years, I've been writing novels. I have known that I wanted to be a writer since I was 12 years old. It's a very pivotal moment in my life when I realized that this was my calling, and I remember it very specifically. I had a very dear friend who I'm still friends with to this very day. We've known each other since we were 10 years old, and she said to me, "Camille, I want to write a book." And when she said these words to me, it was like an explosion in my body. And I very vividly remember when she said those words, they resonated so deeply with her. And I knew that's what I was going to do. I knew I was going to write books forever in my life. And I have no doubt that this was a message that the universe was sending me and that it was working through her, and I'm very grateful for that. So ever since I was 12 years old, I've been writing books. I was that kid that got up early in the morning and worked on my books before I went to school. So I've always been very passionate, and it's always been a very big part of my life. And I've spent most of my writing life honing my craft. So just really working on just improving all of the skills that go into it. It's only been within the last maybe 3 to 5 years that I've really started focusing on how to sell them because writing books and selling books are two very, very different skill sets. So that's what I have been delving into recently, and I've worked very hard to learn as much as I can. You may have picked up from my last episode that I really love to learn, and when something intrigues me, I go in all the way. So learning how to sell books has been no different. I have read books, I've listened to podcasts, I've taken a lot of courses, and I have spent a ton of money learning how to advertise. So much money, it's kind of scary when I stop to think about it because you got to spend money advertising to learn what doesn't work and what does work. But I tell myself that it's much cheaper than going back to college and getting a degree in marketing. So we've decided this is good. This is a good route. And along with all these courses that I've taken on how to build newsletters and how to sell books on Facebook and Amazon and BookBub, I've also hit it from the spirituality side. I have taken many courses and read books on manifestation and how to bring your dreams into reality. And all this time while I've been doing this work, I have really been following in the footsteps of other people, trying to mirror their paths and their journeys and their adventures. And I have to be honest, it has not worked for me. I am not where I want to be as an author. So I've really been doing some soul searching on that as to why paths that certain people have taken are working so well and why they're not working so well for me. And so recently I have started something brand new, and this is what I wanted to share with you. I've only been doing this for about a week, so I don't have a ton of evidence for you yet, but I will share as things progress. But what recently I have decided to do is look at all of the courses and the books and all the information that I've had as part of my Rolodex, so to speak. So it's all wonderful information. And I now have to figure out what my journey is. I can't follow in the footsteps of other people. It's not my path. That's not my destiny. So what I've done is I have written down some goals, like pretty big goals of what I want to achieve with writing and podcasting and my Patreon, stuff like that. And it's taped to my wall, so very clear. So my mind and my subconscious sees it every day. And what I've started to do every morning when I wake up and at night before I go to bed, I ask the universe for help. I just say, show me the next steps to take to reach these goals. What do I need to do today? What's the next baby step that I need to take to get where I want to go? And then I listen. I see what pops into my head. I'm observant throughout the day, see what messages come across my desk, different synchronicities. And I pay attention to how I feel. If something triggers me or tugs at me, then I know that it's something I need to be pursuing. And it's been very interesting, to say the least, because I have asked for help and I am getting help. I'm getting answers. So what happened last week, woke up in the morning and I did this. I asked the universe, help me, show me the step that I need to take today. And as I was scrolling through my list of podcasts, I got a ping, a tug that there was a very specific podcast that I was supposed to listen to. So I filed it away, but then I went about my day, and they got away from me, and I didn't get around to listening to it. So the next day when I got up, I asked the same question, and I heard very clearly, you need to listen to this podcast with Belinda Womack. And it was the only thing that came through that day. I didn't get any other messages. So obviously it was very important. So I carved out some time, and the podcast is run by an acquaintance of mine named Arizona Belle. And her podcast is A Matter of Life or Death with Arizona Belle. I highly recommend it. She interviews a lot of people in the spirituality community, and I love her voice and her perspective that she brings to the community. So anyway, I went in and I started listening to this podcast, and her guest, as I mentioned, was Belinda Womack, and Belinda Womack channels the 12 archangels. And she had some beautiful channeled messages in that podcast, and they touched my heart so much that I messaged my friend Arizona and I said, oh my gosh, that was such a beautiful episode. I so needed those messages. Thank you so much. And she wrote back and said, oh, well, if you really liked this episode, you have to go to her website, and she has this channeled message from August, and it's really beautiful. So I took that as a sign from the universe that I was supposed to go listen to that message. So I went and I played it, and I can't even begin to tell you the profound effect that it had on me. I'm not going to try to paraphrase her message. I'll link it in the show notes so you can listen to it yourself. But the message that I received was that it's something that I've been working on, but it came through in such a beautiful way. But the message that I received was how important it is for me to work on love, self-love for myself and love for others. And I don't know about you guys, but I am not always as kind and loving and forgiving toward myself as I am for other people. I'm not always as nice to myself as I should be. I can look at a friend of mine and tell her how beautiful she is, but I have a hard time looking at myself and saying that to myself and believing it. So it's something that I'm really working on, because I know that the more love you hold in your heart for yourself, the more you have, the larger your capacity you have to share love with others. And that's something that I want to bring into the world from my very small corner, from my very small perch here in California. And then also the message about loving others. And this was something that very recently I had been struggling with the election. There's so much messaging out there about how we have to be divided, how there's this fence in the middle, and you're either on the right or you're on the left, or you're an elephant or you're a donkey, and you can't reach across the fence and be friends with each other. And I find the messaging so destructive, and I'm really, and I definitely was raised with that type of messaging. It's the community that I was raised in, all that stuff. I bought into that for a long time. And so with this election, I really made a lot of conscious effort to really embrace everybody's opinion and just really hold space in my heart for the fact that I believe when people go to the polls, they vote for what they think is best for their families, best for the country. And I do believe that most people vote with their heart. And even if their heart doesn't align with mine, that's okay. It's really okay, because it's all coming from a place of good intention. And at the end of the day, as much as people want us to believe that we're different, we're not that different, right? We all have stinky socks. We all fart. We're all assholes, we're all nice. We all have all these sides, and we're not that different. So I think so much of the healing that we need in our country and in ourselves is just to love ourselves more and to love everybody else more. And it's hard. It's hard because it's not the messaging that's out there. So you really have to break away and really work on your own inner strength and your own thoughts, and not buy into all that garbage that's out there. So this was such a beautiful message that came through to me, and I was so grateful. The part that I found really amazing about this process and this message is that this journey came from a desire that I have here on the material plane. I mentioned I have my little paper taped to my wall of certain things I want to accomplish with writing. For example, I would love to have a month where I get 4 million page reads on Kindle Unlimited. And I know those are really big numbers, but this is what I want, and this is what I'm asking the universe to help me with. I want to get some of my zombie series options for TV shows, specifically TV shows, not movies, because I don't think that a movie could do justice to the characters. I want to reach a lot of writers out there with this podcast. So these are all very material things that I want on this plane, but in asking for help in achieving them, I was led down this path and delivered a really beautiful message and a really beautiful lesson that I'm working really hard to internalize. And it really got me thinking, and it's really reframed how I'm looking at my art. And this is why I'm sharing the story with all of you, is maybe this will help all of you reframe your relationship with your writing and your art and your desire for creativity. I believe that we have these creative urges for a reason. I believe that our desires around our creative urges are for a reason, and that we're all here on the planet to learn certain things and to grow and just to be on this journey to become more wholehearted, complete beings. And I believe that those of us that are driven towards creativity and writing, this is part of our journey. Now, I've mentioned before that I like to run, and in ultra marathons, a lot of times when you're running, you're out in very remote places of the wilderness where it's very easy to get lost or fall off a hill or stuff like that. And the courses are marked, and usually they're just pieces of reflective plastic out there, because a lot of times it's dark and you need to have your headlamps so they're reflective. Anyway, digress. So they're tied to the bushes. They're your course markers. And so I began to think about writing and my desires, and I began to think, what if my desires and my creative drive are part of my course markers through life, that maybe I have these urges and these desires because they're leading me toward the things that I need to bring into my life to grow as a person, which very much happened with this experience I shared, about integrating love for myself and others more into my life. And I mean, that lesson has nothing to do with having 4 million page reads on Amazon, right? But yet it does, because if I didn't have that desire, if I hadn't surrendered and asked for help in reaching that desire, I wouldn't have been taken down that path. So I'm really starting to believe that the reason we have these urges and these desires is because they're supposed to lead us on they're supposed to be our course markers for life. And whether it's something like, I want to get better at grammar, or maybe you already have 4 million page reads a month, and if you do, yay, good for you. But maybe there's a new genre you want to branch into, or maybe you write flat characters and you want to write better characters, or maybe you're afraid to write about sex and you're trying to work up to what you're gonna how you're gonna write about it, how you're gonna describe private parts and all that fun stuff that goes along with romance writing. Whatever it is, whatever your desire is around your art, whatever your urges are, look at them as a course marker for your life. And I invite you to join me on this journey. This is really new. I've never approached success on the material plane this way, in terms of just surrendering and asking for help and just following all these little pings and nudges and messages that I get throughout the day. This is really new for me. So I will invite you to join me and ask the universe for help. Be really clear about where you want to be, whatever that is. And like I said, maybe it's something small. Maybe you just want to learn to write better dialogue, whatever it is. Or maybe you just want to sell 10 books in a week. Maybe you just want to finish your family's memoir so that you have something to pass on, to your children and their children. Whatever it is, I say follow that desire. Don't be ashamed of it. Own it. And surrender and ask for help and see where it leads you. And I would love to hear your experiences. Message me on Instagram at Write with Intuition. I'd love to hear your experiences. And I'm definitely going to be engaging in this practice more. I've only been at it for barely a week. So it's really new, but I've already had, some really profound, amazing experiences. And I'm definitely planning to continue down this path. I'm going to release my old paradigm of trying to follow in the footsteps of everybody else and trying to do what everybody else does. I'm very grateful for all that I've learned from those people, and all of that information it's in my library, and I can access it and pull it out when I need it, when I feel that it's right. But I'm really going to surrender and just start asking the universe every day, help me, here's where I want to go, how do I get there? And see what happens and see what plays out. I'm curious and excited at the same time. To some of you, using your intuition might be really, really new. And I do promise you that I am in the midst of working on a course. So I am going to have a course that can help you with all of that. But since that's not out yet, I did want to give you some tips on how you can do this, how you can use your intuition and ask the universe for help on your writing journey. The first is to watch for synchronicities. A lot of times I receive my messages because I notice things repeating themselves throughout the day or throughout a week. A lot of times it can be a number sequence. A lot of times it can be a really specific message. For example, as I was getting ready to launch this podcast, I had a ton of fear around it. I have a huge fear around public speaking. And I'll share why probably one of these days, but it has to do with a past life. And just recording the 30-second intro was so scary for me. I had a huge cry before I did it. I had a huge cry afterwards, just releasing all of that fear. But I knew it was super important because I had been receiving so many messages about it. And one of the very specific ones was a message that I received to hurry up and get it out there and don't worry about being perfect. That nothing bad's going to happen, and it's more important to get the message out there than it is to be perfect. And this came across my desk 3 times in the same day. I heard it on a podcast. A friend of mine forwarded me an Instagram message. I don't even remember where the third place was, but it came through 3 times, and I was like, oh, okay. Apparently the universe is telling me to hurry the heck up. This content needs to be out there. So I did. I had to surrender all of my paranoia and worry about making this podcast perfect and being a perfect speaker, because I heard how important it was. So that's just an example of how synchronicities can show up in your life. So as you are working with the universe and asking for help in reaching your writing goals, watch for these synchronicities. And a lot of times you'll see numbers. The universe doesn't have the exact same language that we do. It's kind of like you're going into a foreign country and you have to learn a new language. So you do start picking up how your guides talk to you the more you work with your intuition. But I also see a lot of numbers. So when I see a number over and over again, I'll look it up and research it on the internet and see what message comes through for me. I also work with a lot of animal spirits, so I'm very cognizant of when animals come into my dreams or do something unusual in my life, and I know that they're bringing a message for me, and so that I'll research that animal and see what I can learn and see what that message is. So these are just some ideas. The other thing is, when you ask for help, see what pops into your mind throughout the day, and if you get some random idea, a lot of times that's the universe talking to you and giving you an idea. So act on it. That's the most important thing. I talked about how I delayed 2 days in listening to this very important podcast. So it's really important to act on the messages that you receive. And the last way is, as you move through your day, just be very in tune with your heart and how things feel. And if you feel something tug at you, or you feel a nudge towards something, a desire to check something out, follow it. In the past month with my podcast, I used to be very religious about listening to certain podcasts, and recently I've really let go of that practice. I have podcasters that I enjoy, and they're all in my lineup, but what I do when I'm interested in relaxing and listening to one, I just scroll through and I wait to see how I feel when I read the title and when it comes up. And if I feel like a tug or a ping, I'm like, okay, there's a message in there that I need to hear. So then I'll listen to it. And sometimes I don't even listen to the whole episode. I'll know when I received what I needed to hear, and I'll move on to the next one. So these are just some examples of how you can easily incorporate intuition into this journey that you have with writing. And yeah, so I hope some of you will take my invitation and embark on this with me and surrender to the universe and start asking for help and following the pings and the nudges and the messages that you get. And again, I would really love to hear your experiences, and I will share mine as well as this podcast continues. So that wraps up today's episode, and I just wanted to say thank you to everyone out there. My podcast is so new. This is only the 4th episode, but already I'm having people subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I see that people are listening to the podcast. So I just wanted to say thank you for being on this journey with me, and I really hope that the messages and the information that I'm sharing helps you expand your creative life. And please share it on social media, share it with your friends, anybody that you think would resonate with the message and could use this in their life. I would very much appreciate it. So until next week, I will talk to everybody then, and I hope you have a wonderful, creative week. Thanks for tuning in today. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.